Commander 2016 is just 2 weeks away, and we've seen a ton of new legendary creatures to roll out this new 4-color Commander deck thing. Already, people are clamoring over the new cards, and of course, being a big fan of Commander myself, I figured I would weigh in on what some of these newcomers bring to the table. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to hit that like button, it really helps. We're going to begin with the elephant in the room, the new 4-color costed legendary creatures. These are all new to Magic entirely, as no creature has ever had 4 colors before in Magic at the legendary level. But do these actually offer something new to Commander? Let's take a look. Starting with Atraxa, Praetor's Voice, this card costs 1 mana of every color except red. This is the one I was personally waiting for, and I was very excited to see it be the first spoiler that I had found. This Angel Horror is a 4/4 along with a slew of keywords, including Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. It also has this nifty end-step proliferate ability. So let's start with the pros. I love the typing. I was really hoping they would make more Angel Horrors after the Shadows over Innistrad set, and here we go. The keyword abilities are alright, it definitely goes with the abilities deemed symbolic by the colors featured. The proliferate ability is also very nice, especially given the other cards spoiled seem to offer a very potent counter strategy. But now for the downside. Atraxa just doesn't seem to offer much in the way of a preferred strategy. I get that these 4-color legends were a challenge for R&D, and I realized that only thing they had to play off of was the Nephilim of the original Ravnica block, which were heavily disliked. But I feel like they could have given these cards a little more of a strategic focus. I might be the only one who thinks this way, but I very much enjoy a Commander Precon that at least has one legend that screams for a specific strategy. I'm looking at you, Nekusar and Rune. Now, I've heard very much talk about this being a very good card for a Super Friends deck, but quite honestly, I've never been much of a fan of Super Friends in Commander. I'm really not big on just swinging out with Planeswalkers. I just wish it did something a little more honed into something specific. I understand that proliferate means that, yeah, you can use it for +1 counter abuse, but maybe a little more would have been nice. Still, I'm definitely picking up this deck though, so I can finally mesh Gave with Azuri. Next, let's look at a commander that has a little bit more of a focus to it. Brea, Ethereum Shaper. This girl is all about artifacts. Another 4/4 for 4 mana, not including green. She lets us create Thopter tokens. We can also pay 2 and sack 2 artifacts to do things. Again, it's good that we have a commander that does things with artifacts. People have been asking for that from this set, but honestly, I feel her capabilities would be better suited for a non-legendary creature that wasn't geared specifically for commander. The token generation is okay, we'll have plenty of token fun with this deck. But firstly, sacrificing 2 artifacts and paying 2 mana seems a very hefty cost for subpar abilities. Bolting a player can be done for far less, especially being that we're in red, so we could do way more damage than 3. Giving a creature -4/-4 seems underwhelming at best in a format where there are a lot of creatures we will be wanting to be doing that to. Perhaps if it said all creatures target player controls get -4/-4, it might be a little more viable. Lastly, 5 life gained is trivial, especially considering that the last commander that we looked at can do that just by flicking an opponent on the nose. This seems very lacking. We could stick Loros toys in here as well to make up for some life gain burn combos, but I feel this was just designed to be a bit way too watered down. The next card I feel is a bit better. Saskia the Unyielding is a 3/4, not sure why they decided to go with 3/4, but whatever, that has Vigilance and Haste and can cause a player to take damage whenever a player is damaged. This I can get behind. When you attack the player you chose, they'll end up taking double damage from your creatures. When you attack another player, the player you chose will still take damage. I say chose and not target because they did something very sneaky with this guy by not printing it as target player. So this gets around any hexproof nonsense a player may give themselves. It's not a typo, it's a weird trick with the wording. I also like that since this is a non-blue card, it opens up for a ton of aggression. Be it in massive token armies or a lot of aggressive, evasive fatties, this is sure to be the most aggressive of the 5. I'd have to say the only thing I dislike about this guy is why he strangely has 3/4, whereas the other two commanders we've looked at are 4/4. I feel like maybe with the level of power he has, I would have expected him to be a little bit bigger, if anything. Maybe a 5/4. I might be asking too much. Moving on. Kineos and Tiro of Miletus are our non-black option. This is the real group huggy card of the 5, which I can definitely get behind. At the beginning of your end step, you draw a card, and your opponents can choose to either play a land card, or they can draw a card. This seems a little passive in its ability, but on something with 8 toughness, this is an ability that will benefit players without the fear of some reprisal in a form of removal. I don't mind this card having the least power of the main commanders we've seen so far, as I get the point of his deck will be anything but aggressive punches to the face. Also, I really like the callback to the story of Theros and with these two. Finally, Yidris Maelstrom Wielder is our non-white legend. Trample on a 5/4 is kinda so-so, but its other ability is what makes him shine. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, your spells that you cast for the remainder of your turn get cascade. That takes the abilities of Maelstrom Wanderer to a new level, as if the name of this guy wasn't already a reference. My only gripe with it is that it triggers upon him dealing combat damage to a player. It kinda dilutes the potential he could have had. With an aggressive ability like Cascade, I would think you would want to play your spells before combat and potentially be able to swing in for some extra damage. I'm sure people will find a way to work around this, but that's something for later. Overall, these commanders do have some very strong points. For one, they didn't make them entirely unplayable with the casting cost or the abilities. The thing that turns me off of some commanders is that when they cost far too much to play, they become very unplayable at certain points of the game. I love Thraxamundar, but you can only play him so many times before he costs too much to drop into play. Given these new legends have 4 color costs, getting to them into play will be hard enough, much less multiple times. Had they stuck any generic mana requirements on them, they would have been basically unusable. That I appreciate. What kind of bothers me is the sort of watered downness of some of their abilities. Namely, Atraxa and Brea seem very underwhelming. I wish they had done something a little more. Evergreen abilities are alright, but I want a commander I can build into utilizing and abusing. Let's look at one of my favorite commanders, Rafik of the Many. He has Exalted, and he gives lone attackers double strike. This is a strategy that I can keep in mind when I'm brewing with him effectively. I understand that Wizards has made these so that they offer players the ability to brew ideas that weren't cookie-cutter clones of one another, but they might have gone a few steps beyond that into just general unenthusiastic. We will be going through each and every one of these decks as soon as the full deck lists are revealed, and to go through some of the options you can use to improve some of the decks. I'm very excited to start brewing and seeing others brew with these new cards. Maybe I'm wrong with some of these legends, and maybe some of them do have more potential than I've given them credit for. Either way, I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, remember to hit that like button, and lastly, if you're new to the channel, I do hope you consider becoming a subscriber today.